You're listening to Juicy Radio. I'm your host, Tony Bacigalupo, and in this episode, I'll be talking to Toby Scovran of Cubes.Co, a co-working space in Richmond, Australia, just in the vicinity of Melbourne. And he is just a dynamic guy. He's traveled the world. He's built successful businesses and is now applying his business acumen to the co-working world. He's brought a really strong service focus and is now looking to expand his project into multiple locations. He's learned a lot from the co-working world, and now we get to learn a lot from him. So I'm excited to share with you my conversation with Toby coming up now, and then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming Juicy conferences, of which there are a great many. All that and more in this Juicy Radio, episode 22. Toby, thanks so much for joining me here on Juicy Radio, and I appreciate you calling in so early from your time zone. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate you having me on, mate.
All right. So excited to learn a little bit about Creative Cubes, your business. First of all, tell me a little bit about how you got started. How did you first encounter co-working, and what made you decide to go in this direction for your particular career path?
Yeah, totally. I'm an entrepreneur at core, and started a company in 2003. Ended up moving to the United States, Los Angeles, California, in 2008, 2009, and had a pretty flourishing business here in Australia that had its own facilities, warehouse, manufacturing space, office space, so on and so forth. But when I moved to the US, I quickly realized that the pressures of working with big box retail, such as Petco, PetSmart, Amazon, Sky Mall, Frontgate, so on and so forth, logistics was a very specialized category or very specialized department within business. So I actually used a third-party logistics center, 3PL, out of Reno, Nevada. Basically my role ended up becoming, so long as I was connected to the net, it didn't really matter where I was. I had inventory in another state, and I was able to ship. And so I set up the US headquarters out of my spare bedroom in Venice, California, Venice Beach, and quickly came to realize working from home was really not a good idea for my relationship. I was newly married, living abroad with my wife. We're both from Australia. And so, she would slide into the spare bedroom and say, "Hey, let's go do this, let's go do that." As a young married enthusiastic couple, unfortunately, I was really heads down focused on my work. So for her and for us, and I guess for the business, I realized very quickly that I needed to move out. And I found a co-working space in Santa Monica, California, which was real office centers out of the old Google headquarters. Google moved to Venice, and a guy took over the space and converted it into a co-working space. And that was my first taste back in 2008, 2009, or 2009, really. And very quickly, I learned I recognized that my business escalated rapidly because I was really surrounded by people that were like-minded. I was surrounded by people that could add value by service or, consultation to my product business. And I attribute a lot of the success to the business that I had at the time, even though it was pretty established and the product spoke for itself. I attribute the success to it in the engine room. And the engine room is that environment that I showed up to day in, day out, which was a collaborative workspace. In 2016, March 2016, I'd been playing with this idea since 2013, but was really focused on building my business, but was absolutely in love with everything that co-working had to offer me as a consumer. So I flew back to Australia, teamed up with my Chief Operating Officer, Andy Fernie, and I said, mate, let's have a crack at this. And in March of 2016, I sold my company in the pet sector, and decided that my wife and my two kids and I would then go live back here in Australia. And Creative Cubes. Creative Cubes was born really 2013, but really didn't come to market until 2017. A lot of learnings, a lot of traveling the United States, learning from different operators as more of a hobby. And then I guess I turned pro sort of 2017 with our first location in Richmond, Victoria, which is just on the city fringe of downtown Melbourne. And we have our second location about to launch in Hawthorne, Victoria, and location 3 and 4 are very much in the pipe but undisclosed at this stage.
Wow, amazing. What an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. And so just to reflect briefly, it sounds like you started out as a member of a co-working space, grew really inspired by the experience, and then so you returned back to Oz to take a shot at reproducing some of the experience that you had as a member, now as a proprietor. And clearly you're finding some success if you're now working on multiple locations. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, Alan, thank you. Yeah, building 1 is pretty full. We're actually expanding the footprint in building 1. We have 2 floors in a 6-story building on Church Street in Richmond. We're expanding that in September to a 3rd and potentially a 4th floor in the same building. And I'm very excited for building 2, which is in Hawthorne. So for me as a consumer of co-working or a member of co-working in the United States, I sort of tweaked the offering to sort of give it a little bit more of the Melbourne flavor and Melbourne vibe, but with US hospitality woven into it.
Gotcha. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Melbourne flavor and vibe? Like what is that specific to your region?
Yeah, so Melbourne is very arty. Melbourne is very funky. I'd probably attribute Melbourne to very much like a Portland in terms of art and a value for or appreciation for creativity. So we've had to design the space to sort of be in sync with consumer expectations, so to speak. And so I actually think, obviously it's coming out of the mouth of the CEO of the company, but I think our place is quite funky. It's not very typical, so it's very different. We like quirkiness. We like things a little bit off center and unusual. And we think there's a lot of beauty in some of the exposed brick and the rafters and the sort of polished concrete that has some wall wounds on it, versus a slick, gold-plated sort of environment. So a very rustic environment, very funky.
Gotcha. And would you say that that's one of the attributes that kind of makes your space special, is that you have this balance of the Melbourne funky culture and also the American style hospitality, which has become such a kind of a common part of a co-working experience?
It's very interesting, Tony. I actually look at the business very much like Apple. And what I mean by that is we have beautifully designed workspaces that have their own sort of wow factor. But really, the success of what I think I put the success to where I think we're having it down to the software. It's the people. We've developed an in-house concierge team called the Happiness Team, and their goal is to deliver happiness. And they are the heartbeat. They are the connectors. They are the listeners. They are the doers. They are the action people. Nothing too little or nothing too big that you throw at them, they can't tackle. And so it's that combination of beautiful hardware, i.e. device, i.e. the Mac, the iPhone, the iPad, merged with the OS, the operating software, which is our happiness team. Gotcha. Those two worlds combined make a formidable and very compelling and very sticky environment for our members.
So now it sounds like you're investing a fair bit into that team, typically what I see happen a lot with co-working spaces is that they seem to regard the community manager role and the people who play those roles as pretty low level. They tend to staff it as little as possible. The jobs don't tend to pay very well. Or would you say that you're going kind of a different direction where you're emphasizing that more and maybe investing more than the average kind of shared workspace might?
I would say that we are exactly what I said in the outset. Like, we're atypical, right? So we turn everything upside down. We take a lot of pride in the little things, the attention to detail, and the people in other co-working spaces may be regarded as sort of like just placeholders. For us, it's everything. I'd even go as far as to say on the record that Creative Cubes, its brand and reputation is probably 95% a result of the happiness team and not a result of a funky cool workspace.
Gotcha. And so when the happiness team is working with a member in your space, are they looking to provide the solutions themselves, or are they also looking to foster connections between the members and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we have a division in the business. It's a bit dormant right now called Accelerate X, which is sort of like that advisory consulting from entrepreneurs and sort of like venture, successful venture people or skilled professionals. The happiness team right now is connecting member to member. We're happy for Accelerate X to sit dormant for as long as it needs to sit dormant. We have some incredibly talented members within our community that can really serve and solve problems for other members. So the happiness team are really the connectors of, the glue to that connection.
Gotcha.
At this stage.
Very good. And so in terms of where you're going from here with that, do you feel that you've got that pretty solid, or are you working to continue to refine and improve that? Are there new projects on the horizon?
Look, man, I'm a really humble guy. I really am. And I don't like people that big note themselves. However, this has got nothing to do with me personally. The happiness team in our last survey of 250 odd members scored a 4.7 out of 5 in an anonymous survey. And so the reality of where I think we're at right now is we know where we can improve that 4.7 to a 4.9 or 4.95 and maybe even a 5.0. But the reality is, and we absolutely want to push to improve, because I think that you become stagnant and stale. But I think the reality is I'm confident that we have a product in our happiness team and a service and sort of like a characteristic that really doesn't have to do much more, and it will, but it doesn't have to do much more than it already is doing, because member satisfaction is super high.
Gotcha. And so in terms of kind of the bigger picture of this and why this is valuable and meaningful to you, like obviously it's a business, and it can be a profitable endeavor, and that's cool unto itself. But I get the feeling that if it were just that, well, first of all, you probably wouldn't do as good of a job as you might be, but that you might not be as interested in it. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of the real impact that the space is having, maybe a story of a member or a business that was able to thrive as a result of being a part of your network?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, it's all about community. And I'm sure you've heard that time and time again from other operators on your show. For us, we believe community is the new currency. And so we're investing everything we have into building that. In terms of like the success of our community, if you show up with a bag of money and you're not sort of like of like-minded value, you're not positively contributing, or you're not making a positive impact either in the world, into Creative Cubes, or around the people that you're surrounded by, then there's no amount of money that can get you into our door. We have some elite players in our space, such as Uber Eats. We have frequent visits from Lululemon, Real Estate Australia, Seek, which is a massive jog marketplace, 7 billion market cap, publicly listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. We have really high caliber talent in the space. The success of what we've done, we've actually, last year we teamed up with MYOB, which is the equivalent of sort of like QuickBooks here in Australia.
Okay.
And we basically donated, or MYOB partnered with us to run a pitch night at our space for 10 companies or actually take that back, for 10 seats to be given away to small businesses that really need to elevate themselves. And I'm really proud to report, and I'm happy to share a link with you later, which you can share with your users. 3 companies actually won those spots, totaling 10 seats. They had multiple members within the organization. The least successful one has raised in excess of $2 million. And they absolutely attribute the success to coming to Creative Cubes, being surrounded by like-minded people that want to win, which then enabled them to level up themselves or step up and execute their vision. So we're actually running that promotion again this year. MYOB has seen so much success from those startups that they're doubling down. They've gone from 10 seats to 20 seats. And we're running 2 competitions, 10 seats at our Richmond location and 10 seats at our Hawthorne location in September and October of this year. So we're elevating everything around us and everything that comes into contact with us. We've seen some companies that have come in that are just a small 2-person marketing business. They've grown to sort of 4 to 6 people, and they've got national and global accounts as customers. And their customers have walked into Creative Cubes, which is sort of very unassuming in terms of its presence, have wowed them with the facilities, have wowed them with their professionalism. And Sade Mazeo, who is our leader for happiness, formerly head of concierge at the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas, she says it best, which is, when you come to Creative Cubes, we help elevate your brand. So everyone's winning. That's not a big note of myself. That's sort of just a real fact of the space. And mate, I got to tell you, you and I have had an exchange via email. I disclosed to you that I get up at 4:30 every morning. I get up every morning at 4:30 because I'm energized and excited about what we're doing. And I'm excited about the people that are winning in our space.
I hear that. I hear that energy in you, and it's. I definitely can pick up on it coming off of your voice, and that's really exciting. One of the things you mentioned that I find interesting is in your enterprise clients. I know that one of the topics that comes up in conversations sometimes in the co-working world is, first of all, do we try to go after those bigger enterprise clients, and if so, how do we engage them in a healthy way so that they're good citizens? Because, those bigger teams tend to get a little bit caught up in their own worlds. And so it can be harder to get them to come out and be a part of what's going on in the greater community. Have you had any challenges around that or any particular experiences that have been helpful to you in terms of figuring out how to get those people engaged and really contributing to the greater community?
I think it comes down to energy, quite honestly. We do have some very large clients. Uber is a great example of that. Uber Eats. They're certainly not. They take up about 20 to 30 spots on our on our 4th floor in Richmond. And, they actually really get involved. And I think they get involved not because it's there. I think they get involved because they're energized. And they're not just showing up and participating. They've offered to, shout lunches and put on spreads and do some really, really cool stuff. Equally, we have other large companies that are spin-offs. We're obviously not a corporate headquarter at this stage for any org, but we are a overflow space. We are a project space. We're a incubation space. if they've got a new brand that they want to bring to market, and instead of sort of staying at the corporate headquarters, they sort of nest themselves inside of our space to find that inspiration. And we're also a great testing space. We have 300 people on site most days. If you're launching a product, food and beverage is a great example. If we can give you 100 samplers at the drop of a hat for breakfast, lunch, or after work, right? And so a lot of companies are finding real value in all of that we offer. It's not just a strand, but it's full of, like, that full 360. No, they don't isolate themselves. It's not just a place of work for them. It's that, at least we've seen that right now. They're really involved, and not only are they involved, that they come to us and say, "Hey, we'd love to spend our money and shout everyone here lunch."
Sure.
And so we've had a lot of fun with that, and obviously members benefit.
Sure. Yeah. It always helps if you can find some way to align the interests of the business with the community itself. And for something like Uber Eats, there's, a really good alignment there, and the fact that they're in the business of delivering food to people, and you got a whole bunch of people there who are basically potential customers of that service. So, the synergy there is good. But a lot of times what happens is spaces don't even realize that there's a way to engage people that way, or that the tenants themselves don't think of it, as an opportunity. So the more that you're able to foster a culture of inclusiveness and empowerment, and say, hey, this is available to you. Let's do something together. And
I think at the core, my founders and I, we're entrepreneurs. And so if I was launching a delivery app or a delivery network, and I had access to people that weren't, on a daily basis, I had access to people that weren't, sort of on the payroll, and that could give you brutal and honest feedback, mate. That's a massive leg up for me as an organization. I've got all of this stuff built in.
Sure.
It's phenomenal.
Super neat. I like that a lot, and I feel like it's probably valuable in general to be able to think about, anybody who walks in the space, even if they're not yet a member, to say, hey, what are you trying to achieve, and how can we align what we're doing with what you're doing, so that we can all, learn and grow together. And I think the more you're able to foster that between the members, the better as well.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with Juicy? How did you connect with Liz and the Juicy movement?
What's really cool about the collaborative workspace environments is that even your competitors are not really your competitors, and they're helping to give you a leg up. And so I was introduced via another co-working space here, and connected, and I've sort of gone out of my way to build that relationship. I participated in Juicy last year as a spectator, and this year I'll be participating as a panelist, and someone that's hopefully going to bring value and contribute positively to other co-working spaces across the country.
It's exciting to attend a conference and then to be invited to speak at it.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see. We'll see how well that goes. I'm going to bring a bag of knowledge, but whether or not those sound bites are valued or not, we'll find out very quickly.
I'm pretty sure you're going to do just fine. We could basically just play back a tape of this conversation, and I think you'd be in good shape. But I think you're going to have that much more to contribute on stage in person. Do you have a sense of what topic you're going to focus on?
I was invited, at least initially, to talk about expansion, something that I know quite intimately, having expanded my first company from my spare bedroom to 150 odd countries of distribution before exiting. So I can talk intimately about that. In terms of like expansion. I'm hoping that my experience to date in other industries serves value in this sector in terms of, my knowledge to expand and how to expand. So I'll be participating there, but if Liz or Stormy or anyone on the team wants to sort of leverage me for other things, I think that my true position, quite honestly, I've been up the mountain a couple of times as an entrepreneur. I've had a couple of successful exits. I think they're relatively successful. And I'm sort of building these environments now because as a young entrepreneur, all I had was raw energy and an idea. And so there wasn't a lot of support. There wasn't a lot of network. And if there was network, it was sort of dirty. It was predator network. Like, hey, come to my keynote presentation and I'm going to teach you the top 10 things to make your business a success, which is total BS, to be honest with you. The only thing that I ended up doing was spending $150 to listen to some guy talk crap on stage for an hour. And so I really don't like that dark world where, young entrepreneurs like, hey, I've got an idea and I'm going to rock this thing and I'm going to grow it from my spare bedroom to bigger than Uber. And they get intercepted by this, like prying people that are sort of leveraging your weak spots to make money from you. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to build out these spaces and trying to add value where I can to people and make sure that they're safe, right? And so whether they're a success or not is not my decision, but if I can give them the right tools, the right network, the right voice and push them into the right environment, I'm confident that they'll have a better chance than not.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that sounds like the right attitude to take for sure. And what was it like going to the conference and meeting all these other folks, building these spaces in other cities? Was there anything particular that you came away really feeling inspired about from there?
It was kind of unusual for me at first glimpse because, you take, we're a co-working space and we are building an environment. We're spending millions of dollars to establish these sorts of things. And the guy that's sort of like in the next neighborhood comes over and is like, hey man, these are the top 10 things that I learned, or these are the 5 things that you need to know, or are you aware that this is kind of like a sort of a slippery slope over here, and give you all this intel and insight. And I'm like, hold on a second. Aren't we competitors? This is at first glance. Like, would someone get off the train 2 stops later to come to you versus me? And the reality is, that was my mentality from back in FMCG, where I'm building product, putting it on shelf, and my buyer has 2 products to choose from. She takes the left one or the right one, and there's only so much shelf space. In this environment, even the guy, a mile down the street is not a competitor because physically I can't move my product to be side by side. It would be an issue if another co-working space took the other 3 floors in my building. But the reality is the people in these environments, they want everyone to win. And I'm 100% subscribed to that. It was a little unusual at first, hearing from a quote unquote competitor around, around giving you inside tips and tricks. But as I've sort of immersed myself in this space, even the competitor a mile away is not really your competitor because you're a mile away and there's so much airspace between you and that mile that, consumers on this side of the river will not go to that side of the river, so to speak. It's proximity based. And me putting my product out on the market is a representation of all of our co-working spaces, and giving a great experience represents co-working as a whole, not exclusively my own brand and operation.
It's true, and in fact, if anything, at this point, the market has really only just begun to define itself. We're talking about a total change in people's relationship to work as we know it, a change in the real estate industry, So there's still many millions more people who could be members of co-working spaces who aren't yet. And so
100%.
the rising tide definitely lifts all boats. And all you have to do is go into any cafe anywhere on earth to see how many more people could be members of co-working spaces. And that's just people who are there now. So many more joining those ranks every day. So,
you touched on a very interesting thing, and I don't want to sweep it away. I actually want to double click on it for a second. It's sort of like the future of work concept. We're deeply involved with multiple universities and colleges across Melbourne, Australia, that really see co-working as the future of work. And some of the discussions, without disclosing too much, is sort of like, how do we bring the university world and the college graduates into these environments while they're in class, so that they don't migrate out of the school and into the workforce and sort of end up in a world that they weren't prepared for.
Sure.
So I absolutely see it as a huge movement, but I actually really do see it as the future of work. The internet and the web and connectivity has given us this agile, mobile environment. My desk changes every day, and it changes every day because every day I come in, I'm given and my desk is sold to another opportunity or another member.
Sure.
But really, the reality for me is it doesn't matter where I am. So long as I'm connected, I'm in. And a lot of workforce today, the physical being of the space is starting to become less and less relevant, and connectivity is becoming, the most relevant part.
Yeah, agreed. The context becomes more important than anything, and it's transforming the way the traditional offices are managing their environments as well. They're becoming more and more like co-working as well. So very exciting to see where it's all going to be going, and obviously exciting to see what new breakthroughs take place at the next Juicy conference as well. And you're going to be a part of contributing to that this time, which is very exciting.
Yeah. I hope to add value, man, wherever I can. I make myself readily available to, I don't like this word competitors, but I make myself available to competitors. I make myself available to large organizations that are trying to understand the environment, as well as someone that just wants a desk and get out of the front room of their house or the spare bedroom. You can absolutely reach out to me, and if I can provide value, it'd be a pleasure and an honor to do so.
Awesome. Toby, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I do hope we get a chance to meet in person at some point, and best of luck with your talk. I think you're going to kill it, and I'm excited for you.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on the show.
All right. Thanks so much, Toby. Take care.
Cheers, buddy.
So there you have it, folks. Toby is obviously just a very talented and passionate man. I think he's got a lot to offer, and I'm excited for the folks who are going to be joining him in Juicy, Australia, Sydney. That's going to be August 15th to 17th of this year, 2018. Again, Juicy, Australia in Sydney, August 15th to 17th. If you want to learn more about that, go to au.gcuc.co. That's au.gcuc.co. Also coming up, gosh, we have so many wonderful Juicies coming up all over the world. Juicy UK in London, September 25th to 26th. Juicy Canada in Banff, October 21st to 23rd. Juicy in Dubai, November 6th to 8th. Juicy China in Chengdu, that's going to be August 31st to September 1st of this year, so that's actually pretty soon. We'll also be seeing Shanghai and Mexico City coming later this year. So for all of that and more, check out Juicy.co, gcuc.co. You can always find me online on Twitter at Tony Be Good, TonyBGoode, or Tony at nwc.co, Tony at nwc.co. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Would always love to hear from you. And in the meantime, until next time, keep being awesome.